Okay, we're starting.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's start with your name.
My name is Tyler Knight. I
And,
host a weekly radio program on CHRW.
and how old are you, Tyler?
45.
He was hesitant to tell me his age. So what was your first influence into music?
My first influence. My mother was a great fan of Black 50s doo-wop. Elvis Presley, Cliff Richard, things like that. I guess that would be influential to my love for music. I became a punk rocker briefly when I was a teenager, and I actually got teased because I liked new wave more than punk. Susie and the Banshees, Sugar Cubes, Depeche Mode, bands like that. I used to get teased by my friends for not being so quote-unquote hardcore.
What was your first record? Do you remember?
Yeah, my mother used to give me $2 a day for lunch, and if I didn't spend it on comics, I would buy 45s with it. Back then, 45s were really cheap. They were about $1.25 each. And I think my first record... Gotta think about that for a moment. I know I used to try and collect all the Beach Boys singles. I think my first record was a 45 of Surfer Girl by the Beach Boys. I had quite a collection going. Yeah, definitely the Beach Boys. I look back on it now.
Were you ever into playing instruments when you were younger? Or?
Yeah, I took up guitar, but partying was a lot more fun, so I didn't really stay with it. I should have. I regret it.
What got you into radio hosts?
A lovely woman by the name of Jane Jeffries. She arranged an interview with a man named Barry, who owned Radio 98. I don't know if he owned it, but he was, at the least he was manager, but he had a heart attack, and it never panned out, so I never went and met him. And I knew a score of people who had worked at Radio Western. She suggested that I go there for an interview. I went there, I talked to Adula Smoke Cannon, who was the program director there, and I did their sessions. They make you take some sessions so that basically to see if you're an idiot or not. I did a mock show, and they called me 11 months later, and I remember my first program was a disaster. I had the wrong chord, and I basically had to, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I had to burn the music as I was DJing. It was very stressful. I don't ever want to go through that again. And so I came up with, I always wanted to have access to a radio station that played everything, and CHRW is definitely a station like that. Very appreciative of letting you have your own freedom, letting you do what you really want to play, and I thought it was golden.
And right now you do the history of rock, right?
I'm doing Rock Evolution. I started in August of 2012. And I played 10 months of blues, 14 months of jazz, a brief stint of jive, and I'm now in my almost a whole year of folk tradition, and eventually I'm going to be playing everything. Everybody that matters, big and small.
Can I ask you, what was your first concert you ever went to?
A little bit lame. I went to see Kim Mitchell. It was here in London. I used to complain because concerts back then, London had Wonderland Gardens. They had some great venues back then, but I only really caught the tail end of that.
And how old were you at that time?
Old. I think I was 16 or 17. I had seen other concerts before that, but that was probably my first recollection of, I don't know, I think that's the first concert I actually paid for.
And you're from London, right? Or
Yeah, I was born and raised here, unfortunately.
great place to live.
Yeah, if you're raising children, I think London's a good place to raise kids.
Have you, after you're done the rock and roll evolution, have you thought of any other ideas after this with your radio show?
To be honest, I think that I'll be busy for a long time. I'll be there as long as they have me.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years so far, and I'm only about, I'd say, 10% into the actual progression of genre by genre.
And you just got an award there, didn't you? At the
Yeah, last summer, 2014, I got an award for Best Overnight Program.
and how did that feel winning that award?
To be honest, I was pretty surprised. There's about 75 DJs that work there, I think. And the joke is that if you stay there long enough, you'll eventually get an award. And I lucked out. I got it I guess that would be the second year that I was there.
Pretty impressive, second year winning an award.
Yeah, it was rather nice. I was surprised. My listenership's really high now. I don't think it was very high when I started, but I'm really happy and pleased with the support that I've gotten. I used to pray for a phone call. The phone flashes there, obviously, because you can't have noise in the booth, but I used to ache for the phone to flash. Now, it's very distracting. It flashes quite a bit.
So you have a good turnout for people listening to the show right now.
Yeah, I do. It started out with mostly friends, and now it's really escalated. Last year there was about a 3 or 4 month stint, and believe it or not, I was getting calls from like Scotland and Iceland. One guy called from Leningrad just to say that my show was really cool. I thought that was odd. People listen on the net.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by that.
Now, being a radio host, you probably get some weird phone calls that come in.
Yeah, because I work the 2 to 6 shift, Thursday night, Friday mornings. I get drunks. I have a cop that calls probably a couple times a month. He's very nice. Insomniacs, shift workers, night owls, you name it.
And you talked about friendships. We should mention this that me and you have been friends for
It's been a while
6
now.
years
Yeah.
now, I think, or a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And I met Tyler back when, before you started doing the radio host, and I've been DJing for quite some time.
Yeah.
Where we started talking about music, and then you got into the radio host. And I know personally, I've heard some different stories of the radio host, though. I won't mention some of the stories. But there's one in particular about. Stalker.
My stalker.
Yeah.
Yeah, she. Oh, I really hope she doesn't hear this. I don't think she knows my alias on social media, but yeah, she's probably missed 3 Fridays in almost 3 years that
Yeah.
I've been doing it.
So you get the loyal ones so far that come in and listen constantly.
Yeah, I have weekly listeners that rarely miss my show, and yeah, even though it's a little bit creepy, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And you do the. I know the one Friday you did a contest. Do you guys do that often on that show, where it's like phone in or answer this question? Because I know the one time it was
You yourself.
Yeah.
You yourself have called in and won. Yeah, I have a contest every 13 programs. And if it's celebratory, like for instance, my first year, second year, next month will be my third year, so I'll probably have a contest around that time as well.
Nice. What else can I add?
I feel like we're just getting things going.
Yeah, this is just getting started. Now, would you recognize yourself as a music savvy person? Because I know we've had our talks about different bands and you have a lot of knowledge about different, not only music but history and.
Yeah, lately, new music. Personally, I think music's kind of sliding downhill a bit. It's really changed. Let's just say I appreciate the more older style.
Yeah. Now, here's the question. You talk about music going downhill. A big thing that's going on in the media lately was Kanye West saying he's the new rock and roll. Like he's the new king of it. What do you think of that?
It would be okay if he actually played rock and roll. Corey Taylor, I remember just about a week or two ago from Slipknot, said that if you have to say that you're the greatest rock and roller ever, you probably aren't.
Yeah, and you agree with that?
I do.
Yeah. So you're saying that our old rock and roll is the true nature that you like, and the newer stuff we're losing that pretty much the artistic side of it.
Well, rock and roll's an old man now.
Yeah.
Look at Ozzy Osbourne, right? The whole image of it's really, really, really going downhill because it's all about the mighty dollar now, and there's no art left in it. There is, but not for today's standards. It's really nice of Jack White, who I really respect, breathing a little bit of life, giving it some resuscitation. And he's come a long way, that individual. He's still fairly new to the world of music.
Yeah, since the 90s, I think.
Yeah, right.
And music's like around the world. It's like a known thing. It's what people love and get into. What do you think of London's music industry so far, of bands and our history of music? Because you're from London and you're a little bit older than what I am.
I remember when punk rock was banned here in London, which is just abstract to think of. Like, that's bizarre for them to even have the nads to do that.
The band punk, and that was in the 80s?
That was the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. And
it didn't last too long, I don't believe.
And you were probably the Embassy. You remember the Embassy, the Wick,
I do remember the Embassy.
Call the Office,
yeah.
The Rec Room.
Call the Office is the old York Hotel. I even vaguely recall that place. Knickerbockers, Ichabod's. Ichabod's not so much, but Like I said before, the London Gardens, Wonderland Gardens. We've had some great venues here. Mingles, the old fire hall, and they're all gone now. The Richmond is probably one of the only places that's left. The Whip is gone now. The Embassy is gone.
Called office in Richmond.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. London Music Club too, and places like that, but they're fairly new.
So you know a lot of the great bands that come from London and the artistic side of London. Because I know that you're involved a lot with, and you know a lot of the bands that are from London. Like, to mention a few at the top of my head, Kitty was a big one in London.
63 Monroe, the Black Donnellys.
Black Donnellys.
Red Dye, Sheep Look Up, the Cro-Mags, and actually, I won't make a situation out of it, but the place we're in right now, there's a fella at the back there who actually has some Juno Awards at home.
Yeah. And
the Demics, he worked with Anne Murray.
We also have Thunder Mug, one of the big band that was around in the 70s about.
Yeah, they had some great success.
Yeah, Africa being one of their songs. Yeah. Did you see a lot of those bands that originally had started in London?
Jim, who we both know, I remember seeing him. It seems like 1,000 centuries ago now, but I remember seeing them play, and I thought it was strange to converge once more and see the guy so many years later.
Yeah.
I'm not even really that old, and I'm feeling old, let me tell you.
Well, it's a lot of kids my age and younger, because I'm 28. And a lot of kids younger than me, the first thing they think about musical talent, it's sad to say now, is like Justin Bieber.
Right.
And that's what we're known for, is because London, and a lot of people know, some do, is Justin Bieber was born in London and actually lived here for some time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, that focus has been on that and not our actual history of music, with Thunder Mug, Kitty being the first, I'd say, heavy metal, rock and roll women band of all women. We're also known, sadly to say, a person we both don't really are fond of, Helix and Bob Noxious.
Bob Noxious. Ugh. Helix, I mean, hey, they're okay.
Yeah.
Bob Noxious. No.
Don't worry, I don't think Bob will be listening to this at all.
Yeah. Blue Bones, I remember them. They were pretty great too. Actually, I miss that band a lot. They were pretty awesome.
Now, what would you categorize Thunder Mug in? Would you say that's rock and roll or classic rock?
Yeah, classic rock. I've never really liked that term. We only call it classic now because music stinks. I would say Thunder Mug is. I'd say hard rock.
Hard rock?
Yeah, with a bit of a blues undertone to it.
Yeah. Would they be in one of your radio shows in the History of Rock?
Actually, I played them in blues. I played one of their singles that they had back in the day.
Which single was that?
I would have to think about that for a moment. I can't remember. They had a few hits.
Africa, I know the one.
Yeah, I didn't play that. Yeah, I'd have to look at my notes. It's, I think I played almost, I played just over 5,000 songs, so.
Over almost 3 years of work, it'd be understandable. I know for myself, DJing, I play quite a bit of songs I can't remember because I go through so much.
Yeah, it's a blur.
Yeah, and for you, because a lot of people are mistaken with this question. They think DJs that play in nightclubs and everything else are like radio DJs, but we use different kind of equipment, we use different kind of... Well, the only thing in common is our sound that we do is pretty much making the sound quality come clear and controlling that, and that's one of the similarities in it.
It's really different now too, because of technology. I was seeing a girl the first year that I was doing Nightcrawler, and she had a vast collection of old blues and jazz records, and I was actually playing vinyl for about a year and a half, and I was really fortunate to have use of her library.
Yeah.
I was playing people, and like, you know, I'm learning too. Like I'd say half of the music that I play, I stumble upon it. Some people I've never even heard of, even people that I respect for their knowledge of music. I mention certain artists or names or bands to them, and they don't even know. So, and that's a point of my program too, is to play people that are forgotten and never really had a lot of fame. I mean, a lot of blues women, a lot of blues men, even jazz. They have one hit and they die, and no one knows who the hell they were.
Now, you talk about vinyl, using it. For me, I know my first vinyl was actually Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, where I was like, I think I was 10 at the time when I got that record. And for me, I don't know what your opinion is, but I think vinyl is a true sound. I don't like the MP3s or the CDs. I have all of them, but I truly believe the quality of sound is way better than vinyl.
Yeah, I like that static click.
Yeah, the static. And I have a live album from like Def Leppard and Judas Priest.
Judas Priest are amazing. I love that band.
Yeah, so for me, I think vinyl is like the key of quality of sound.
I would agree with that.
A lot of kids younger are starting to buy vinyl. Like
it's coming back.
You look at the styles now, the retro styles coming back with like the big glasses and
the wide pants.
The wide pants. Even the Kurt Cobain look coming back. Like that's a big one.
Yeah. Grunge is sort of a recycled punk rock. I mean, it's interesting how music is repeating itself, but only in sort of a retroactive, branching out sort of way, just like disco was sort of a revamping of the old pop, you know. And we got dance music now. You mentioned Bieber. I mean, really, Bieber is, you know, sort of he's the new pop doofus, you know. People used to make fun of the Jackson 5, and I mean, hell, Michael Jackson is tyrannically more talented than Bieber ever will be.
Well, when you talk about how Bieber's like the new like quote pop, you think, for me, I think like Vanilla Ice. He's like the new Vanilla Ice. Look how big that guy was for like a glimpse.
5 minutes.
Yeah, and then went out of the flame, and that's when I think about these. Just a quick thing for the people that are going to be listening to this. That's how I'm going to do it. Is just and the article too. Read this. It's London. We focus on one quality that we have, and that's the nightclubs in London and the DJs and Justin Bieber. But we're missing like the whole history of why we have such a musical city and such an artistic city, because there's artists that are now forgotten. You name some of them off, like Thunder Mugna. A lot of kids would know who that is.
No. In
Kitty.
fact, a lot of adults wouldn't probably either.
Even Kitty, a lot of people have lost that focus, because Kitty's been gone for how long now?
It's been a bit.
Yeah, over 10 years they've been away, and no one's really heard of them a lot.
People develop amnesia too until they hear a hook or a song that maybe is similar, and that's what music is all about. Poetry. Poets used to steal from each other or be influenced, and I mean, look at Bob Dylan. He named himself after the writer Dylan Thomas, and actually ended up being a lot more famous than Dylan Thomas ever was. You mentioned Dylan Thomas, nobody knows who Dylan Thomas is. You mentioned Bob Dylan, people have heard of Bob Dylan.
Yeah, and and yes, a lot of other countries are like known for their music. The States, England, Europe.
World music is even Africa. There's some
Yeah.
great artists coming out of Africa.
But there's a lot of great artists that have come from Canada,
Yeah.
and mainly Ontario. When you look at it, Ontario has a lot of musicians
All over the place, even Iceland.
Yeah.
Bjork.
Yeah, and that's really the cool thing about your show is you're playing a lot of things that are not only like bands that people would know from the States and Canada, but there's places that we don't know from Europe and all over, and we're starting to the people listening get to know these new artists.
There's great talent all over the place.
Yeah, and it's for me, because I've listened to your show, it's a lot. I recommend any younger people that are listening to this to listen to this show because they're going to learn about artists that you don't even know about. And we've had this talk about, the founders. Without Beethoven, we wouldn't have music. Without those...
Without birds,
yeah.
we wouldn't have music.
Birds, drum from Africa.
Even hitting on an animal skin.
Yeah. And then you look at the big one we talk about a lot is like Johnny Cash. Without Johnny Cash, I truly believe we wouldn't have, that darker music. Because Johnny Cash was that founder of, people wouldn't say a lot of things Johnny Cash talked about because they were afraid of saying it back then.
Right.
And you also have Jerry Lee Lewis, the Animal.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't do what Animal did, but he did it. And I think that's the key thing of a lot of kids. You've already mentioned is they look at this as like the new music and the best music, but they're missing where this music came from.
A lot of people are missing it.
Yeah, like for me, it's like the newer bands that give credit for those artists. Like look at Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails, who gives a lot of credit to Johnny Cash when he did Hurt. That was a song that Trent wrote and was personal to him, and he was pissed at the beginning, but he turned to be a little bit happy afterwards. It was like a true honor of having a legend like that do that kind of music.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix too. You can't forget that man.
Jimi Hendrix, and you have like even the ones that are no longer here. Kurt Cobain was a good artist.
Even Amy Winehouse. I think that she was destined for legendary status, and now that she's dead, she's still got it.
Bob Marley.
Yeah, Bob Marley for sure.
Yeah.
Even people that aren't really talked about in common circles, like you got Lord Kitchener, Calypso. You got the Mighty Sparrow, people like that from Trinidad, all the Caribbean islands. There's a lot of artists that the youth of today will just never, ever hear about, nor will they even probably care.
Alright, so as a radio host, if you had a younger person, say my age or younger, and they said, what band should I listen to? My first band, who would you recommend?
Oh, that is so hard. You got David Bowie, Jimi Hendrix, the Oyster Cult, you got the Smiths, of course the Beatles.
The Doors.
Yeah, it's so hard to choose. There's, I don't know. It's.
If you would have a better question, if you would tell them to start with genre.
Yeah, my favorite genre personally is likely heavy metal.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like the late 60s, early 70s heavy metal, the birth of when rock and roll really grew up, the revolution of it.
So, name a few off, like Black Sabbath.
Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, King Crimson, the Oyster Cult, the Who, the grandfathers of punk rock are definitely the Who.
A lot of people mention the Who for the founders of punk, and they are. They're truly the founders of before. Because a lot of people, when you say punk rock, think Sex Pistols and Ramones,
right.
And they forget the Who was like those beginning founders of punk rock.
Yeah. Even G.G. Allen, who was Repulsive.
Yeah.
You got to include him too.
And then you look at because the 70s was a big time of music in the 60s because a lot of genres broke off.
Yeah.
You had punk rock, you had heavy metal, you had rock. You look at
even art rock, David Bowie, Lou Reed, Iggy Pop.
and then you have the Cure, who were like
Yeah.
kind of the oddballs because
Yeah.
they were like what we know as gothic music, you know, a lot of gothic rock. And the Cure, a lot of people don't recognize them for their work, but they're like the founders.
Oh, they're legends too,
Yeah.
for sure.
And we've had big concerts here in London. Just recently, we've had the Melvins, who are a big reason of grunge today.
Yeah.
We've had SNFU, Chai Pig, a big punk band, and London has a big artist coming in. And would you recommend people a venue here in London to go to for people if you had one?
We've had a good handful of artists at the Bud, which used to be John Labatt Center. I'd say that I don't really know if we have a best venue. There's Aeolian Hall, there's Centennial Hall, which is getting aged. Millennium Music Club, Millennium Music Hall. But I miss the old places.
Now, would you prefer a big venue like, let's say, Budweiser Gardens, or a small venue like Call the Office?
I remember Iggy Pop playing Call the Office, and if you've been to Call the Office, that stage is so small. I don't know how. I mean, I've been in there, and it's so packed in there, you can smell the person, and I mean really smell the person next to you. I don't know how big bands do it in there. It's so tiny in there, and I'll never forget seeing Iggy there. That was an incredible thing. I saw Dio at the Embassy. Like, who would have thought that would ever happen?
And where were you when that embassy burned down?
Actually, I remember hearing about it, and a week or so after that, I heard that I knew the people who were indirectly responsible for that. I heard that it was some dirty old punk rockers that were squatting in there and lit a fire, and it got out of control and they left, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah. See, that was my first place I ever went to see a concert was Rainbow Butt Monkeys at the Embassy.
No way.
And that was my first bar I ever went to was the Embassy. And I think I was 12 back then. And it was my first concert.
And they're Finger 11 now, is that right?
Yeah, and the first venue I went there. I've seen Bright Eyes there before they were even Bright Eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And our biggest thing when we were kids were like the Embassy, the Wick, Call the Office. Music Hall wasn't as big back then.
Right.
It's grown over a period of time where we've had more artists come. So it's kind of interesting seeing the growth of London. To me, I think we're turning to a mainstream kind of city now, a mini Toronto, I say.
Yeah.
And we're a lot more of mainstream music, mainstream artists, a lot of more hip hop and house. And as a DJ, I'll be honest, I don't like that shit. And that's just me.
I like about 10% of rap.
Yeah, there's some rap
I like when it was called Corner Funk. That was amazing. It used to be about, I can't get a job, my girl left me. It was very blues based, if that makes sense. Now it's, the booty, the gun, the drugs. It's ridiculous now.
If you had a rap artist that you liked from the 90s up.
Oh, from the 90s up? Wow.
Could
I
you
would say
name one?
Grandmaster Flash, but from the 90s up, I would have to just go with the Beastie Boys. Very brave to be white and Jewish and to do rap. I mean, come on.
Well, it's another Jewish group that came out, like Kiss. Kiss is a Jewish, all Jewish guys, and they face painted themselves, and it was something that was unknown, and people, they got a lot of flack for the stuff they sang and a lot of the stuff they did.
Yeah.
There's a little shake
Gene
going
Simmons is... guy's an idiot now. I always liked Ace Frehley a lot. I think he's probably the most talented member of that group, even though he had some serious drug issues. I mean, he had a fairly successful solo career. It was brief, but a great guitar player. Amazing guitar player. But there would never be a greater guitar player than Hendrix.
And
Never.
It's funny you talked about the Beastie Boys. You know, I met Mixmaster Mike back in 2008 at Cutting Edge Fest.
Oh.
He was the DJ because that's what he was doing. He was just doing a DJ performance. If you could name one artist through all of history that you want to meet, like have a one-on-one with on your show, who would it be?
Living or dead?
Either or.
Yeah. I'd have to go with James Marshall Hendricks for sure. Yeah.
And for people who don't know who he is, can you give like a little...
Well, if they haven't heard of Hendrix, they really got to check themselves.
And that's a lot of people, again, don't know Jimi Hendrix or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's sad to say.
That's like saying you don't know who David Bowie is or Beethoven.
Or Beatles.
Yeah.
Or Elvis.
Actually, I met a girl once. She was Japanese as well. She'd never heard of the Beatles. I can't believe that, but it happened.
When you interact with those people and that comes up, what's your first reaction you want to do? Like, for me, I have younger people, younger than me, and I know I'm young, but don't know the bands I know. Because I'm more into the older stuff and the more of heavy metal. And when kids say they don't know this band, I kind of want to smack them in the head after this.
If you haven't heard of the Beatles, you haven't heard of Jesus.
That's
Some
our
say
buddy
they were
Greg.
more famous than Christ, yeah.
There's our buddy Greg right there. What's your first reaction when people...
I was very surprised, of course.
Yeah.
When I reiterated who John Lennon was and spoke of the woman that he married, she knew Yoko Ono,
Yeah.
but she didn't know John Lennon.
It's kind of funny, you talk about people not knowing the Beatles. We have a mutual friend, actually. I won't say his name because he's going to be embarrassed from this, but he thought Yoko Ono and John Lennon, he thought John Lennon was a president that got assassinated. He mistaken John Lennon for JFK.
Ooh.
Yeah. And we had explained it to him one day that they were two different people. They both got killed by a shooter, but one wasn't the president there, one was the Beatles.
Vastly different.
Yeah.
Both named John,
Yeah.
but that's about it.
Yeah. And I get those questions sometimes from...
Tell me who that was after the interview. I'm curious.
Yeah. If he listens to this, he's going to probably know who he is. And you won't be surprised if there's a comment. So is there anything else you want to tell the people about what you do and why you do it even?
I do it because there's not enough attention on people that really mattered. To me, music, I think Nietzsche, the existentialist, said it best that without music, there'd be no point in life. And, I would totally agree with that. I think that there should be attention paid to anyone who had great talent, and especially the ones that didn't get any credit. I just want to add that Bonnie Raitt, the blues singer and guitar player, she felt the same way, and she went so far as to raise money for funds to get grave markers for a lot of blues players that were buried without names or head markers. And when I heard about that, I just thought that's awesome. Like that's really great for her to do. But yeah, I just want people to appreciate it, and you've got to know certain things in life, and I think music is the most important. People would disagree with me, but I think that's the key.
And do you think there's a wide talent that's coming from London now.
I think London's got some great talent. A lot of people think Tommy Hunter is Canadian, but he's not. I find it strange that we have a street in London named after that guy, but yeah, I mean, we've got a handful. Of course, hockey players. Everybody, most people are aware that there's a lot of hockey players that come from London. We're a hockey town.
A lot of people focus on that, more of our sports side, and
Yeah.
our music and art side gets kind of shoved underneath the rug.
It does, and City Hall does not give enough attention, nor do they give enough money to support that.
And for a new artist that is starting in London, would you have any advice for them?
Well, you know what? That's a good point. I would say M. Griner's from Sarnia, so she doesn't really count, but she's doing fine now anyway. A London artist that I think people should pay attention to. Wow. Pete Denemy, who started London Music Club, I'm sorry, I get the two mixed up all the time. I would say that, people are aware of that guy, but I think opening up that venue was a great idea. Anybody that goes through there should really thank that guy, because that place is important. And he spotlights a lot of people that are so small that nobody will ever know who they are. And they can get their start there, too.
Yeah, and we have a lot of... So, would there be a advice you'd give like a new artist if you could?
Get out of London. That would be my advice.
Great place to start off, not a great place to stay.
No. In Toronto, I lived there for a couple of years. And of course, that town is busting with talent. And same thing as here, nobody really pays much attention to it.
Yeah, so you already named like some places off that should get attention of people's attention right now. Like we have a mutual friend, David Johnson. He has a band that started up. If you guys don't know who he is, look him up.
Talk about David John, Holy Roller.
Yeah, Holy Roller. Check them out. Just a new person I just met, Jordan, the other weekend. Mm-hmm. He's in a bluegrass band.
Black and Bluegrass.
Yeah, there's a lot of great bands, a lot of festivals going on. So we have a lot of good talent that's going on in London that you should check out. There's a lot of festivals. I think
JoJo Worthington is another one. Yeah. That's she's very talented.
And I think for us,
Alison Brown, my old program director. Yeah.
A lot of us, a lot of more musical scenes are popping up in London. We're having more festivals. We just had Rock the Park. We have Sunfest. Home County. Yeah. Which they keep switching the name to. Stop switching the name. Maybe pick one. And we have a couple more festivals still coming up.
I think they changed because folk sounds like you're an old person.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add to the interview?
Just thank you very much for this.
And again, if you guys haven't checked out Tyler, check him out on CHRW.
94.9.
94.9, the Nightcrawler. It's at 2 o'clock in the morning. Stay up. It's worth it. If you are up anyways, check it out.
Thursday night, Friday mornings.
Thursday night, Friday mornings. Friday mornings, very much.
Yeah.
And check them out. Thanks again, Tyler.
Thank you, sir.
We'll be posting this online tomorrow.
Excellent.